Hey, we're back, and it's BDS Radio News, or whatever the hell we're still calling this stuff. It's me, Los Pop, aka Ethan, your host, your special needs accordion aficionado. We were going to cover all the movies that were going to be part of CinemaCon, but there's one, first and foremost, to address that elephant in the room. What ended up happening was quite a few things, and it just feels cursed, and as a team, we just decided we're not going to bother with it. Most of the news at that point had been covered, but first and foremost, I got extremely sick during the week of CinemaCon. I was coughing quite a bit. I still have a residual cough, so I apologize if I coughed during this episode of News Radio. There's a big chance that I probably am not going to edit that out. Okay? All the movies that ended up being taken, so there was, for first and foremost, I'm sorry about that little stutter here, but what ended up happening is I recorded an entire episode that lasted about 100, in terms of time, I mean, about a whole hour and 45 minutes going over movies and stuff like that, and then the file corrupted. I got pissed. That was after I felt a little bit better, and we decided not to cover most of these until they were all out, so until all of CinemaCon was done. In addition, I have a review going on for Minecraft, some written reviews for some other sites and stuff, and some other projects that were going on. And so, to be honest, News Radio got a little shit canned. But we got some news. I'm trying to keep this episode brief so that way there's something out there for you guys. Hopefully, our listeners are enjoying what they've seen so far. But we're going to get right into it. First and foremost, we will be addressing all the Switch problems. Most of this episode is going to focus on the Nintendo Switch because I don't really think it's in good favor right now with the community at large. So we're going to jump right in. First story is Street Fighter 6. Apparently, they've leaked the reveals for Season 3 characters. We're going to get right to it here. The characters are as follows. The leaker predicts, and this is a guy who apparently has quite the reputation of getting it pretty much right or being somewhere on the money. You have to also take into consideration that a lot of these Street Fighter characters are potentially characters that are being made and could be in the background for other things. So it's not set in standard. It's not 100%, but this guy is pretty credible, so give it like an 85% window. But he's predicting that the following 4 characters will be present for Street Fighter 6's Season 3 Year 3 Pass. First character is Sagat. Of course, that is no surprise to me. I'm going to be honest with you. I felt like it was probably more than likely going to happen that we were going to get a Shogun-type character, whether that was going to be Sakura or Sagat. So it was 50-50. It was pretty obvious that was probably going to be a character. We'll see how right this guy is. I don't usually cover rumors on BDS News Radio, but I don't know. It's Street Fighter. It makes me giddy, and I love Street Fighter. Another character is Alex the Grappler from Street Fighter Third Strike or Street Fighter 3, The Next Generation, depending on when you were first introduced to Alex. A little bit weird here. We are repeating DLC. See, I have that cough, see? I'm not editing it out. I refuse. Alex is great. That would be good to have a grappler. And then we have our charge-based character with C. Viper. C. Viper is apparently going to be in there. And then here's the interesting one. The character that never was, that never could, that was always like a glitch, or not a glitch, but like a guest character / never really made it into anything outside of SNK Versus. And I think maybe you could play her in Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper, the PSP version, which should be in the future going to be part of the Capcom Fighting Collection that will be launching in May. I almost said March. Ingrid is her name. So those are the 4 characters: Sagat, Alex, C. Viper, and Ingrid. Whether or not this is true is up to debate. We'll see what ends up happening. The guy has been pretty credited with a lot for Street Fighter. He pretty much got Street Fighter Season 2 down to a T. He predicted that there was going to be a crossover with Rival Schools. recently, and a few other of the battle passes that happened over the course of Season 2, aka Year 2. He predicted that there was going to be a Monster Hunter expansion. He predicted that there would be a Phoenix Wright expansion. He predicted that there's going to be a 1942 19XX expansion. He even said something about John Van Clone Dam as an expansion. So he's been right on the money. So if he's saying these 4 characters are potentially in there, chances are it's a good 80% chance, 85% chance that he's correct. But nevertheless, let me hear what you guys have to say for Street Fighter 6. Do you care? Are you still playing it? And let me know. I know this is more of what I wanted to cover. Now, I'm going to go ahead and we're not going to cover the Nintendo stuff until it's at the end here. We're going to go ahead and jump into the Megan 2. Apparently, Blumhouse and Jason Blum and all the people there are looking to recreate all the viral, crazy nonsense that's going on with the Minecraft. Now, at the time of this recording, the Minecraft episode might not be out yet. I'm still working on it. I want to do a review. I'm doing it with my wife, so we're going to be talking about the film. And then afterwards, I'm going to do a separate section where I pretty much address all of what's going on with Minecraft and the Minecraft movie and the phenomenon that's happening in cinemas. Nevertheless, regardless of where you fall on the corporate ladder of stuff and what you do and don't want, do you like the cringe? Do you like all that stuff? It doesn't matter. Blumhouse here wants you to get involved and wants you to be just as active and straight up weird with Megan 2 when it launches in theaters sometime in June or July. I'm not too sure about the official release date, but they're encouraging people to use their phones. They want them to stream. They want them to take videos. They want them to fuck around. They don't really care. They want them to do stuff, and they also want you to interact with the chatbot that will be interactive throughout the entirety of the film. Not too sure what this will do for the film, if this is going to drive up sales. It's definitely an interactive. I'm sure it will account for a little additional sales, not by much, but I think it's definitely going to change. There's going to be people reviewing and stuff like that. I don't really think I, myself, am going to bother going to see Megan 2, and I don't think interacting with the chatbot or encouraging me to fuck around with my phone and do things on the same level of what's going on with the Minecraft movie is up for grabs. This seems like a last-ditch effort, though I will say I don't think the chatbot would have been something at the last minute. I just think that they're going to push for you to use it now more than ever due to what's going on in theaters with the Minecraft movie. That's Megan. Megan 2.0. It looks silly. It's a goofy movie. If you haven't seen Megan, it's a decent, alright movie. I would like to support Megan a little bit more, just simply because if Megan continues to become like a serial killer doll of sorts, hopefully, as a fan, we're leading down a road where Chucky can fight and verse off against Megan. So that's what I'm all here for. The last story before we get into the big-ass Nintendo Switch news, and pretty much we got a ton of different stories to cover for the Nintendo Switch 2, and most of it is negative, so I don't want to be a bitch about it, but I'll give you that spoiler ahead of time. But hot off the heels of the open-world Wonder Woman game being canceled, Warner Brothers Games is apparently already and has been secretly at work on a new unannounced IP that's set to launch later this year. Now, it's not known what it is. We know only one thing, that there I am with the cough again. I hope you are very happy with your additional news and cough, because I am not fixing it. Anyways, they spotted that there is some sort of game being worked on by WB San Diego before they were closed. They definitely have some sort of production. Outside of that, not much is known, but they said it had very similar ties to that of the Wonder Woman game in general. Remember, the Wonder Woman game in general was canceled twice. Whatever they were working on, but apparently, so from insiders, according to this, the $100 million that was spent on the first version of Wonder Woman is actually being reworked into something entirely different. So whether that is a completely different Wonder Woman game, whether that's a whole new IP, whether that's a whole nother hero, I'm glad to see that it's something. Now, considering that they are having an additional focus on something like Harry Potter with the Wizarding World with the Hogwarts Legacy, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that this is something to do with the Harry Potter Wizarding World license. Now, why I say that is simply this: is that they want to focus on DC heroes. They want to focus on Warner Brothers games in terms with these three franchises: DC, Batman. Batman, Mortal Kombat, and Game of Thrones. Now, Game of Thrones has already got a game that's been announced, and it looks like shit. And I personally don't give a fuck. And I think that the hype and the build-up for that franchise and that series as a whole is really just hanging on by a thread with that House of Dragons stuff. I don't think the IP is nearly as strong as it used to be a couple years back when the craze for all things Game of Thrones was in its full swing. So a game right now is just meh, whatever. So I don't think it's that. NetherRealm is still working on whatever they're working on with Mortal Kombat, and of course they've been approached by James Gunn. I don't believe for half a second that a fighting game is ready and willing to potentially drop or be revealed this year. I don't think that's on the table. And personally, me personally, I think it's probably something to do with the Wizarding World. I think it was definitely reworked into that because that's something that they want to focus on. Is the Harry Potter license, Harry Potter, Mortal Kombat, Batman, and Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones already got a game. Mortal Kombat and NetherRealm are still hard at work, and the people that cover that are pretty much on the mark every time. So if this isn't on their radar, then it's probably not a Mortal Kombat game. So my guess is it's either Harry Potter, or if they said it was reworked into something else, they didn't really specify. But if they specify there was a superhero, you can bet your ass it's probably another Batman property. A Batman game sell. Batman games are great, and that's what people want to play. Batman. So that's it for Warner Brothers. And sorry to cover mostly rumors this episode. But that Street Fighter was too hot to not talk about. But now we got to talk about Nintendo. It is bad. It is bad news. It is waves of like one bad story after another. So for those that don't know, the Nintendo Switch 2 got announced. It had its showcase. It pretty much showed off a bunch of third-party RPs that will be coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. None of that was really important. The number one important things that we have to talk about are simply this: price, the games that were announced, the fact that most of these games are not going to be backwards compatible. There's going to be a list, but we won't know that list, and that will only piss off more people if they announce that. And when and they're going to have to announce it at some point, the list of what games are backwards compatible, and it's only going to upset gamers and fans of Nintendo and fans of the Nintendo Switch in general. Now, the biggest elephant in the room is definitely the price of digital games being marked up at around $80 to $80 depending on the game, with the physical versions being an entirely $10 different. Now, that's inflation based on a Spain website. Spain is used to doing that, so a lot of misinformation has been going on around here that will affect the United States. It is unsure. It is unclear if that will happen, but given that Nintendo is setting standards with their reveals and with their price charts and with what they want to do, it is not out of the question that the Nintendo Switch 2 physical games will be $10 more. So if it's $70, it'll be $80, and if it's $80, it'll be $90. Those are the price ranges we're looking for. Whether or not other companies jump on board for their pricing on the Nintendo Switch, that is hearsay, and we don't know. What we do know is that first-party Nintendo games, such as Mario Kart World, will retail at $90, whereas Donkey Kong Bonanza will retail at $80, with the digital being $10 less for both of these things. Now, do I appreciate these prices? No, I fucking hate them. I think they're terrible, and I don't think it's going to be good for gamers, and I don't think it's going to go over well because people are poorer than ever nowadays, and people are, being smarter with their cash. And let's be honest, the Nintendo Switch 2 is not alluring people to want to go and spend $450 or potentially more for tariffs and for all this other shit here in the United States. Now, that being said, what else is adding to this backlash? besides the price, because a price is one thing, and eventually, whether we like it or not, sometimes we fall in line, or maybe they do the right thing. Let's ignore the prices. What else is making things not work well? Well, for starters, that Nintendo Switch tech demo, Welcome to Nintendo Switch 2, Welcome Room, or whatever it's called. Yeah, the Welcome Tour is what it's called. I apologize for that. The Welcome Tour game will be a paid digital-only launch title at $9.99. Now, here's the thing. That's not that expensive, but here's another thing. Why the hell would I spend $9 on an already expensive machine, and an already expensive membership, and an already expensive game, right, to buy $10 additional to buy something that should be lock and key on the Nintendo Switch to day one? That's not a very good look for them. Now, here's another problem that they're having. That was story number one, was that people were pissed off about that. Personally, I don't give a shit. It's a tech demo, and people aren't going to pay for it, and Nintendo's going to learn real fast that the only people that are going to pay for it are going to be Nintendo purists and, of course, reviewers. They're not going to waste their time with that. And if reviewers are getting freebies from you, Nintendo, they're definitely not going to waste their time doing that. Okay. The next story is simple, and this is here's another one that kind of irks a lot of people. When asked about it, the CFO of America, the new one that replaced Nintendo of America, who replaced Reggie back in the day, his name is Doug Bowser. Doug Bowser had an awful take, and his take was simply, if you can't afford the Nintendo Switch 2 or its games and its products, then you should stick to buying a Nintendo Switch or sticking with your Nintendo Switch. That shit didn't go over well when the Xbox boss did that shit before Phil Spencer was in charge. The asshat that used to run Xbox when they were debuting the Xbox One and saying, well, that we have an offline system. It's called the 360. This is giving much of the same vibe. I know I'm not the only person to cover this, and I know for well that this has probably been on a TikTok or some shit, but let it be known that if you're new here and you're doing great, you get the analogy. If you don't, whatever. Point is, it's not a good look that the CFO of the Nintendo of America, who used to be Reggie, who is fondly remembered and still remembered as one of the greats, now has his replacement, who hasn't really had to do much for the Nintendo Switch's lifespan outside of announce a bunch of shit that was already announced prior to his tuner, come out and say something god-awful like, hey, sucks to be poor, you know, especially when most of their clientele are children. That's really not a good look for Nintendo, and especially the new high-rise with the name being, last name being Bowser. Yes, that's his name, Doug Bowser. It's not a very good look. And it furthered the divide for gamers and people and consumers for the Nintendo Switch 2. I don't exactly want to buy a new console when he's just flat out saying, fuck you, don't worry about what's going on. If you can't afford it, well, sucks to be poor, you piece of shit. They also doubled down on the fact that the Nintendo Switch will not have achievements, and that kind of sucks. It really feels like something that could have been an additional bonus to adding to the membership. It feels like we're only spending $50 for the extra bonus online just so that we can use a disgruntled, screwy version of the of Discord with these, like, god-awful cameras that no one's going to use. Mark my words, it's going to fail far more than the Kinect ever did. I want the Nintendo Switch 2 to do well, but I just, all things are pointing in a bad direction. When asked to clarify about the Nintendo Switch, they simply said nope. There would be no achievements or achievement supports, when most of these games all have achievement supports thanks to Xbox and PlayStation's mandatory thing, and even Steam recently made it mandatory for achievements to appear on their site. It seems really weird that third-party games wouldn't include an achievement sort as well, which is weird because in-game, some Nintendo Switch games themselves have achievements on the game itself, but it doesn't really contribute to anything. It's weird that a whole genre and a whole group of people and a whole, niche group of people will unfortunately not bother with the Nintendo if there's just no achievements and stuff like that. It just feels weird. It feels weird to be avoiding achievements for as long as they have. It feels like something they should have implemented in the Wii U generation, and it just never happened. But you know what? If Nintendo wants to stick away from achievements, it is what it is. I get that they don't want people buying shit for achievements. just check the Xbox and PlayStation stores. They're littered with these terrible achievement games that are just there for achievement boosts. So we'll see what happens. It's just a little mini thing, but it just it's just weird that they just flat out just said no instead of saying we'll see about it and stuff like that. It just all the negativity. It just seemed really stupid to be talking about that. We have 2 more things to clarify, and there's just really reasons why I don't think the Nintendo Switch 2 is worth it. Okay? So the number one thing is that C button, yes, Nintendo has clarified that the Nintendo Switch 2 C button will not be usable unless you have an online membership that you paid for. Now, if you accidentally press the button, let's be honest, if you've ever played on an Xbox Series X, if you've ever played on a PlayStation 5, you know that there's a share button. That's like saying that every time you've accidentally sent or pressed that button, that it would take you straight to a page telling you to pay for more shit. And again, this is a children's-based console. Could you imagine little Jimmy accidentally presses the C button, and he's gonna fucking press all the buttons on the controller, and he doesn't know what he's looking at, and then he just accidentally puts in mommy's credit card and daddy's credit card, or, you know, or he goes and he wants all these V-Bucks or some shit. It's very predatory that I never thought that that's what it would do. I thought it would be like a button that brings up your home menu. I didn't know that a literal button on the controller is just a gateway that doesn't work, and it's just a predatory button of figure intended to get people to pay money for the online membership. That's downright fucking thievery. That's stupid. That's a really bad call that it would do that. I hope that they update it before it launches, and that is not, in fact, the case. But when everybody was testing these things at different places in the UK that had a setup, and then somewhere in California and New York, people got to have their hands on the Nintendo Switch 2 for testing and stuff like that. And every last one of them said that the Nintendo Switch 2 C button on the Joy-Con, on the right Joy-Con, it is exactly what it sounds like. It literally is a gateway to be like, do you have an online membership? And it does not. So that's a bad look. And then finally, if only the bad news wasn't bad enough, Nintendo quietly clarifies, and this is an article from Game Radar Plus, Nintendo quietly clarifies that the Nintendo Switch 2 GameCube controller, remember the one that we theorized before it was announced, and we got it right on the mark? Well, it comes with a little bad news. They clarified that this Nintendo Switch 2 GameCube controller will only work with the online classic library. I will repeat that. It will only work with the online classic library for Nintendo GameCube games. This controller, that'll probably cost $60, $70, is only usable for an online function that you have to pay $50 to use yearly on launch day, which will only have 3 games. What? Folks, I don't know about you, but I don't like spending $60 and then an additional $50. So right there, we're spending $110 just so that way I can have limitations and only be able to play my Nintendo GameCube controller, one of my favorite controllers of all time, and I'm not able to use it on the Nintendo Switch 2. No, instead, I have to use it for the only 3 games that are available on launch day. Another racing game in the form of F-Zero GX, my bad. A Wind Waker game that I don't give a fuck about because I don't give a shit about Zelda. And then a fighting game, Soul Calibur 2, which, good game and all, but, it's not very great when you can't play with other people. It eventually loses its charm once you go through battle story mode. So now I'm left with a controller that can't do anything because, that's right, it won't work for all the games I buy. So that means it won't work for Mario Kart World. It won't work for that stupid fucking test game they're making you buy. And, it won't work for the new Donkey Kong Bonanza or anything else, that third party that you were looking to play with your favorite controller, a.k.a. a Nintendo Switch 2 controller. Personally, I hope they dial this out of everything that I've complained about today. I hope that this get dialed back immediately, because I want a Nintendo GameCube controller right away. I don't care about the Pro Controller. Personally, I don't give a shit. I know for a fact that there's going to be third-party controllers almost within the first, 3 months of this console, and they'll be cheaper, and they'll have the stupid fucking C button, and all's well in the world, and you'll have your Marios and your Zeldas and your Kirbys and your Pokemons and your whatever the hell, as PowerA will probably make a ton of controllers for this device. It's okay. So that's your Pro controller. But regardless, I still want a GameCube controller. Now, if Nintendo's not willing to do that, I know for a fact some other company will do that. But the fact that the first thing out of the gate with ill-informed people that don't know any better, you are preying on people being uninformed of what potentially is with your product. Shame on you, Nintendo. Anyways, that's enough bitching about Nintendo. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Brain Dead Studios Radio News Podcast, or whatever the hell we're calling this shit. I do deeply apologize for not being able to cover CinemaCon. There was a ton of movies, and we do love these movies. It doesn't mean that we don't want movies, we don't love movies. We will be covering movies in the future, but it was good to get this episode out there and to talk about, not only address the CinemaCon episode and why it's not out and why it's not happening, but also just to get you some stories and also to clarify where I stand with the Nintendo Switch 2, and that is not very good. I don't feel like I'm going to be buying it, and I don't think any listener should be wasting their time buying the Nintendo Switch 2. I have been Ethan. I am your host at BDS Brain Dead News, and we will see you on the next Radio News episode. Peace.